Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dr. Suhail. I'm a writer, I'm a humanist, and I'm a psychotherapist. I have a clinic in Whitby by the name of Creative Psychotherapy Clinic. And it's not just psychotherapy clinic, it is Creative Psychotherapy Clinic. And the reason we call it Creative Psychotherapy Clinic, because I have a great fascination for creative personalities. This creative mind, this creative personality, who have creative lifestyle, who have non-traditional lifestyle. I think those people have special gifts, and those special gifts, when nurtured, when they develop in them, they are not only good for themselves, but they share that creativity, that gift with their family, with their community, and that's how they nurture, they inspire other people. So as a writer, over the years or decades, I must have interviewed many people, many writers, many artists, many mystics, many philosophers, many scholars. But for some strange reason, I never came across a psychic. I never interviewed a psychic. And I cannot say myself why it never happened, but it just never happened. And it might have never happened. But then something very interesting happened. You know, life is full of mysteries. And one mystery leads to another. And one mystery comes out of another mystery, because life is full of them. So I have a dear friend, her name is Tabassum Shaida. The nickname is Tabby. So when I met Tabby, she started to ask me these very sort of fascinating questions. The focus was paranormal psychology. So I would smile and I say, you know, I'm a scientist, you are probably a mystic or a psychic, or you have some special interests. So I could not answer some of her questions, but we developed a friendship. And over the years, that friendship grew. And then one day she told me, she said, there are two people that in her life that she's very inspired by, and they are of a different set of lifestyles, of different philosophies, of different worldviews. One is Khalid Suhail, that's me, and one is her friend Tony Uberoi. And she said, why don't you meet him? So I said, sure, if you want me to meet him, that's great. So she called Tony and said that Dr. Suhail and I would come to your house where he resides in Etobicoke and have this interview, an informal cup of tea, we'll chat, we'll talk, we'll have a dialogue. And it was very kind of Tony that rather than we going there, he was so generous. He said, no, I'll come to your house. And it was an interesting thing because he had never come to Tabby's house before. So a couple of weeks ago, I met Tony for the first time in Tabby's living room, where I had met her for the first time. It was sort of a strange coincidence. And when I met Tony, actually when he walked into the room, his name is Tony, but there was another Tony that I have not known personally. But he reminded me of him because sort of the height. He's sort of very tall, and most of the people know he's known by Anthony Robbins. He's known by Tony Robbins. He's a personal sort of a guru who helps people, inspires them to develop their inner strengths and inner growth. So I met him, we sat down and we started talking. He was so generous, so kind, so gentle, very respectful, very peaceful, very affectionate, you know. Actually his affection was so overwhelming that I felt sort of a small in a way that I could not take all the affection. He was overwhelmingly affectionate. So we talked, said that sort of one thing led to another. We had a long 2.5 hours interview. At the end of the interview, he said to me that I always have this desire to write a book, to share sort of his life experiences. So I said, I know writing is a very mysterious process because it deals with the muse, and I shared with him my philosophy of the muse, that muse is very jealous. So people who have work, who have families, who have community involvements, the muse gets jealous and then walks away. So I said to him, why don't we sit down and have a chat, a long interview, so that we record that. So those people who have never met a psychic, those people who have never heard of what is astrology, what is palmistry, what is sort of about this reincarnation. So all those questions that I was always curious about. So it is a golden opportunity for me to talk to him, to interview him, so that those of you who have never been involved in those kind of encounters might learn something. We might learn something. I learned something from him, get some secrets of life from him, his life experiences. He has a very wide range of life experience. He must have met hundreds of people. He must have done these readings online or on the internet or on the videos or personal readings. So all these encounters, we'll ask about the positive and the negative, the challenges, the crises, because you're dealing with people's lives, and I deal with people's lives as a psychotherapist. So in some way, the psyche is sort of, the interest is common, although our fields of, the paths to that mystery is different. So today I'm not talking to him as a psychotherapist. I'm not here to psychoanalyze him. I'm basically here as a student, as a humble student, from a person who is so popular and very widely known. Tabby told me that people call him all over the world and pay. I mean, his services are so precious. They are actually priceless, but people might pay $200, $300, the money is not the issue. But it just shows how much he is popular among all those people who want to get his knowledge, his experience, his wisdom, his insight, So I don't know, this is an area I don't have much experience, I don't have much knowledge, but I am curious and I would like to know more about that. So with that introduction, I will introduce you people to Tony Uberoi, and we'll have a little discussion to see what knowledge, experience, wisdom he is comfortable today to share with us, share with me, share with you people, and we might learn something, have some better understanding about those mysteries of life. So Tony Uberoi, I really feel very honored, I feel very privileged that a person of your caliber, of your popularity, all over the world people come to you, and you were graceful enough, you were kind enough, generous enough, not only come last time, you left your home and you came here. So I just wanted to acknowledge that it is a great honor to have this dialogue with you.
First of all, thank you, Dr. Sohail. I want to start by thanking the lady Tabby for being a link between the two of us. She's one of the persons I met when I was a very new immigrant about 25 years back, and over the years somehow she has kept in touch. I'm honored and I thank her for inviting me to her beautiful residence. But all those words that you used to describe me, I think I'm humbled, first of all, I thank you for them, but they all those words, caring, kind, generous, and all those words apply only to you. And I'm honored and I thank God for connecting me with you, and I feel that you will always help me, and I thank you ahead of time.
Thank you. So I think, Tony, this is an informal dialogue. The idea is that you have some special gifts that you share with the world. So myself and many questions I'll ask on behalf of the people who will watch this interview so that they have a better understanding. Let me start with one question. When I told my friend, I have a Jewish friend, Hildy, I said, I'm going to meet Tony, he is a psychic. So she asked me a question. She said, what is the difference between a psychic and a mystic? So I said, I don't know, I'll ask Tony what is the difference. So in your mind, what is the difference between a mystic and a psychic?
I will try to answer this to the best of my knowledge. First of all, I would like to say that humans, and this should begin in school, the education system should not put it in people's minds that we have only 5 senses. we should be told that we have six senses. So the sixth sense or the intuition, people have in varying degrees. Some are lucky to be either born with it being of an evolved type, and some develop it over the way. Some have, I've never met anyone, but I'm told some people have a near-death experience and then their intuition opens up. So, who is a psychic? I somehow do not know or like that word. I prefer to use the word intuitive. So an intuitive, I think, is a person who has worked in trying to understand and evolve and know life from beyond the five senses only. So just as a singer who has a very good voice will continue to practice and develop the voice, similarly there are some people who become aware that they are intuitive and they work on it, and so that's an intuitive. A mystic is one who is definitely an intuitive but is also wanting to get beyond the logical world. First of all, an intuitive, can see things beyond the logical world, but a mystic wants to know the mysteries of life, mysteries of spirituality, mysteries of why certain things happen or not happen. They realize it, they don't analyze it, I repeat, they realize it, and with that realization, they seem to understand so much more about life. And a mystic is an intuitive who looks at life much, much, much beyond eating, drinking, being merry, and is probably asking, I think a mystic tries to ask those questions much more than anyone else. Why am I here? What is my mission? Where am I going? You know, these are three basic questions that come to everyone, but they look beyond that. And then they try to get inspiration, realization, and continue to evolve themselves. So I think in a very crude manner, I am trying to give you a distinction. But I would say one thing, that it's a difficult distinction.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. So I'm curious that at what age or what stage of your life that you became aware that you have these sort of intuitive sort of abilities?
The eureka moment was not that I have it. The eureka moment was that probably others don't have it as much as I do. Because I thought everybody has it, everybody feels it, you know. So, very quickly I will just say that being a premature child, I'm not a physically strong person, but somehow or the other, the super sensitivity towards others, their feelings, and the intuition, when I look back, was, I think, always there. I will admit one thing, that I did find myself a little out of place in most companies, even as a child. And I had to sort of force myself to belong, you know. So I would say that for me to pinpoint that at a certain age I knew about it would be difficult, but I think the realization was gradual. When I look back, there were incidents where I would tell my mother something and it came to be, etc. But I thought maybe everybody knows it, you know. And the one thing that was a botheration to me is, why can't people understand? And I'm going to leave that sentence there. Why can't people understand, you know? And then slowly, gradually as I grew and came into my teens, by observation it became quite obvious that I'm the freak in the in the group, etc. Uh, and then in my teenage years, I saw my first book on palmistry, and I'm not trying to toot my horn when I'm saying this. I seem to know the subject. I just had to inhale the book, and 50 years later, now I'm still trying to understand these subjects, including palmistry. So, after having done readings for thousands and thousands of people, I still learn. So I will go back to your original question. When did I know? I will say I knew it, but an acceptance of it came in my teenage years.
I'm also curious that whether in your family, whether parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, was there any person or more than one person in your own biological family that has that special interest or had that kind of intuitive sort of abilities or gifts?
Both sides of my grandparents uh, were very religious and spiritual. My paternal grandfather was a medical doctor, very spiritual, prayed for about 7 to 8 hours a day. And the only thing I remember is that he did consult the ephemeris to see whether it's a good day to travel, etc. But there was no mention of intuition. The same with my maternal grandfather, very religious, spiritual. There was no mention. But the way they would look at life, I can say there was some element of intuition. No, none of my cousins or none of the people who I grew up with, they did not have it. So again, I must admit I'm the freak in the family here.
You just mentioned that you were a premature baby. Can you share a little bit of the circumstances of this premature birth and what was the family's sort of reaction or how they dealt with it? Because as a doctor, I know that premature children sometimes don't survive, sometimes they die. So what were the circumstances of your birth?
The biggest city in India, Bombay, and the commercial capital is where my parents resided. My mother had gone to see my paternal grandfather, and he, as I said, was a medical doctor. He had adopted a village. You know, after the partition of India, he came from what is now Pakistan, so he had to come to what is now India. Erstwhile India was one entity, and because he had come of age, he adopted a very small village. He had a very good lifestyle there, but it was one of those villages which was remote, no electricity, nothing. And my mother was sitting in the evening prayer with him, and she began to have the pains. My grandfather immediately understood, and he had to wrap up the prayers, and just before midnight I was born. And I'm told I was very my weight was very little. I hear 3.5 ounces or something like that. And
You mean pounds, 3.5 pounds?
pounds, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I apologize. I'm not good with
Yeah, that's
ounces and pounds. I'm a metric person. So thank you for correcting me. So there was much concern that whether I will live or not, and it was remote. It was at a time when modern day facilities are not available. So can we go back to your question? What am I missing?
I was saying that the circumstances in which your premature
Yeah,
birth
the
happened?
the first year my mother tells me was very difficult because my digestive system was very um, super sensitive, and they had to um, be very careful, and that's that's all I know. So I thank my grandfather and my mother, otherwise I probably would not have lived.
Now, connecting the moment, the time, and the day of birth with these sort of astrological signs. So, how, because I don't know anything about it, so I'm asking as a student, how do you connect somebody's sort of the astrological sort of life or whatever the readings to the time or the day of birth? What is the significance in astrology of that event of birth with the astrology?
Uh, I would not like to call myself an astrologer. The reason is that although I have studied it, and I have studied a great deal of palmistry, numerology, etc., the reason why I say I don't want to only call myself as an astrologer is because I know I go beyond certain things. But astrology helps us to form a very basic, uh, foundation. Now, I never thought I would do this work. I never thought I would be interested in this. Okay, if I was intuitive, that's fine. But I had a hobby. I used to go to astrologers and what have you in India, pay them for their services and poke fun at them. So I wasn't even a student, never mind wanting to be a professional in this. And it is just one astrologer who allowed me to do my crazy antics, and at the end said, Tony, you could do what you want, but you're going to be on this side of the table. And he is right, but I don't know where he is. God bless him wherever he is. So the basis is that, I mean, you can imagine how big the universe is, and there are so many Milky Ways, there are so many stars, there are so many planets, etc. So what happened was, I think I have read a lot, and I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but I think astrology, at least the Vedic astrology, was definitely born in India. And it was downloaded by the very spiritual saints called rishis and maharishis. So what they would do is they would sit in meditation for years. Today, people would think that this is impossible, but I know about it because I have read it, but I have no proof. So I'm just quoting what I have read. And they would sit for months or whatever period of time and download the information, and then they realized that human beings will not be able to understand the complexity of this. So they condensed it. Okay? They said 9 planets, 9 numbers, 9 vibrations. And so just with that 9, they did everything. And perhaps a lot of people in the world don't know, Aryabhat, who was a mathematician and a genius in India, was the one who gave us 0, and then the present day math was born. So those 9 planets and their placement in the 12 houses tells us, at birth, tells us about the very basic nature of this person. What are their physical body going to be like? What are their likes? What are their dislikes? And their milestones. When will there be a chance for this person to get into education? Will they go into higher education or not? Marriage, or things like that. Basically, it's not even called marriage, it is union.
Sure.
That's what we call it, and then finally. I do not think that it is written in stone. I think each millisecond we're making choices, which is often known as karma and things like this, and we are trying to achieve what we want. If we are doing it the right way, then I think some blessings come upon us, and if we don't, then I think we have obstacles in our way. So going back to your question, it's the placement, because the planets are moving. It's a placement at that moment when you were born that gives us everything about you. And then as the planets move, how they are affecting you, and how certain things will make you do or not do something. I firmly believe, and I'm the best example of it. I have a commerce degree, a law degree, an MBA. I did business with my father for about 25 years. I fought not to do this, you know, but if destiny or the universe wanted me to do this, one is pushed, you know, just like you were born in one country and you had to come here. Why Canada? Why not any other country? I feel there is an invisible force. People want to call it providence or destiny or whatever names they give it, fate, but it's there.
Okay, thank you. So coming back to your personal life, so you were born in India in this family, with your grandparents, with your mom. What is now looking back? What are your own sort of earliest memories of your childhood? When you think of your childhood, what kind of things come to your mind?
I had a fantastic childhood, not good, fantastic, and I give all the credit to my parents. My father, first of all, knew that I'm not physically very strong, and secondly, I'm a lost soul. He would actually use this word. He would call me the absent-minded professor. If you remember the film, Absent-minded Professor. So he knew I was absent-minded. He had to, literally get me back to being here now was the most difficult thing for me, and it still is. My wife has to sometimes correct me even when I'm driving. I must humbly admit this, it took me 10 years to get a driver's license, So I'm such a lost soul. And just like today, I had to give a book to Tabby, and I requested her to tell me before I came, and of course I forgot it, right? So I had a fantastic childhood. I'm the first child and male. I say male because in the Hindu system, somehow or the other, the male child is given a little bit of, he gets a better treatment. But not in my house. It was the other way around. My father was most strict with me, and the girls, I have two sisters, they got a softer spot. But I look back and I only thank the great man, my father, because had it not been for him, had he not been strict with me, had he not taught me so much, he was a person who taught me that you have to earn money. You have to, otherwise you'll be lost. And the little that I have been able to make, it's because of him. But he gave me a lot of love as well. He was a person who knew my weaknesses, and he was afraid that I would not be able to get along in this world because of that. My mother, a quiet, pious woman, God bless her soul, she's close to 90 now. We live together here, and she still blesses me. I try my best to do what I can as a son. So I had a great childhood, and then when I was 5 years old, my sister was born, and then the youngest one, she is about almost 17 years younger to me. So whereas I was the oldest son, the connection with my sisters was a little remote because of their age difference to me. So I was in my own world, I should say, and I never had any problems for two reasons. Number one, uh, I was given total freedom. I was not told not to do something, etc. Money was not a problem. My father was a good merchant. He gave us a good lifestyle, and I was a happy child.
You had mentioned earlier that from the early childhood you had some kind of this intuitive expressions that sort of came true, or that kind of experience or encounters. Can you share an example so that people who are watching, they might have an idea that as a child what kind of things you would say or spontaneously do that might come correct, or things like that, that will gain people's attention, that you have that intuitive gift?
Two things come to my mind. One is, I remember I'd gone to school. I may have been in grade 6 or so, and there was another kid in the class. I was not very friendly, but we were all a group. I went up to him and I said, "Look, don't get upset if your father beat you up. He was just angry, but he loves you, etc." And he was very shocked that I should know this, because I lived nowhere close to him. There's no possibility, and we did not have the telecommunication we have today. So he was pretty shocked, and he kept asking me how I knew, and I could not answer that. And another example, I think I shared this with you last time. If not, I'm going to share it. So I remember I was about 12 years old, and we had to go for a marriage ceremony, and I love to play. I was playing with my friends and not getting ready, and my mother ultimately got a little upset with me and said, "Why are you not getting ready?" And I said, "What's the point of going? These people are going to get divorced." And that upset her. Why would I say something like this? And it came to be. So these are some of the incidents. Nothing major, but yes, when I look back, it could only be intuitive. It wasn't from knowing something about these people.
So, as you are saying that you are a bit sort of lost soul, and you are in your own world.
This is how I describe myself.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, in the school, we discussed the family dynamics. So, what was the reaction of the teachers and your classmates in school? How did they emotionally or socially react to you?
I was mischievous. I loved to play pranks. I was generally considered the fun guy, the buffoon of the class. I have a good memory. I used to study one night before. I'm not a hardworking person, not at all. First of all, I'm not even organized, never mind hardworking. And so if I look back, I never had the books, I never had the notebooks, I never did my homework. If I had the notebook, I didn't have the pen. If I had the pen, it was leaking, something like that, fountain pens at that time. So I would study one night before. I had a good memory. Whatever I had remembered in class or whatever, I would vomit it, not even reproduce it, and get through the classes. But I would say I was a happy kid.
So when you were a young teenager, 13, 14, 15, 16, many children have some kind of a dream or ambition or a desire or a fantasy that they are going to become this, and they're going to do this in life. As a teenager, do you remember having a dream or a wish about your future, that what it would look like, or what you wished it to be?
With the crowd, there were certain things. Okay, if everyone is saying being an engineer is cool, I wanted to be an engineer or something else. But when I look back, and even today, I'm like a rudderless boat, I do not seem to have set goals. I don't know my path. I'm a lost soul. Um, but one thing was sure, and that was that I I thought that life is going to be fun all through. And around the age of 16 is when my father in his business had an earthquake loss. That shifted everything, and I had to join my father in business, and I had to take evening classes for my graduation, and then all the other things. So whatever I studied was either a morning class or an evening class, and during the day I had to help my father, and yes, there was a trying period for some time, about 5 years, but then after that we came out of it. We were not super rich, but we never had any major problems.
So it seemed like from a business point of view or academic point of view, your dad had some wishes or dream or ambitions on your behalf. So if you have to describe what was your father's definition of success, that he wanted you to be successful, what would you say? What he thought was the sort of the criterion of success, and in what way he wanted you to be successful?
That's a very nice question, actually. And he was a successful businessman. Yes, he had a couple of major losses, but that I think was because he made some emotional decisions. But as a businessman, he was good. I don't remember him ever telling me do this or don't do this. I had all the freedom. But I remember one sentence which is still in my mind, and he used to always say, don't be run by the show, you have to run the show. So because he was an entrepreneur and a businessman, and he had the steering wheel in his hand because he was an auto parts business.
Yeah.
So I think he wanted me to have the steering wheel.
Yeah.
That's all. Otherwise, he did not interfere much with my choices.
You mentioned that you had some kind of an academic achievements in India before coming to Canada. So give me an idea of your sort of after finishing high school, how did you decide in college or university that what subjects or what career or what profession you are going to pursue?
I hope you're not going to laugh at some of the answers, okay? So first of all, I would like you to take away the word achievements. I don't think they were achievements. I think, as stated by one of my friends, he was with me until graduation. I think we flirted with education at most, okay? So as I said, my father had this loss, and so I could only go to an evening class. And there was only one college that gave me the evening class, which was for my BCom, and so I went and did BCom. It's as though I was being pushed, as I say. And then I did the law, the LLB, because I computed that the discount that I get in the transit system for being a student offsets the fees. So that's why I did the law. I cannot say that I wanted to be a great lawyer or what. I just did it, okay? And then the MBA I did because people said it's impossible to get admission there because it's a very good institute and it has a great standing in India. I wanted to do it. I did.
That's in Bombay.
That's in Bombay. So I that's why when you use the word achievement, no, it was no achievement. It was no achievement. Looking back, if only I had been organized and I had worked hard, I would have definitely done better academically.
So this was from your father's side, who was interested in business, his business, and introduced you to the business. What do you think was your mother's wish for you? What did she wish for you to do or to become, or did she ever express that to you, that my son, I wish you do this or become this? Did
Never,
she?
never. I, I, I was just like a prince. I could do what I wanted as far as my parents were concerned, but my own destiny took charge and kept pushing me to do certain things, and I made my own choices or mistakes and paid for them also. No, so no, I don't remember my mother telling me you have to do this or that.
Now, let me ask you a question from a identity's point of view, that up to a point when your dad, socially, of a certain social stature or successful or whatever. So sometimes children are respected or accepted because they know that he is such and such person's son.
Mm-hmm.
So being somebody's son also gives you a certain social acceptance.
Correct.
So did you at some stage while you were in the college or the university realize that your identity as Tony as compared to being your father's son, did you ever sort of struggle with that kind of
I
thing?
did not struggle, but I had no identity.
Yeah.
I was only Mr. Uberoi's son. I had no identity. And it did not bother me. Okay, so be it. Could I have a glass of water, please? Go ahead.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tabby, thank you.
Get us 2 glasses.
पानी या
Water,
7
water,
up
water, water.
I think sometimes while we are talking, some random questions also are coming to my mind because I talked about identity. So in my mind, your name popped up, that this Tony, because it doesn't sound like a generally a Indian name.
Yes.
How did the Tony come into the picture?
Well, these Tonys and Titus and such names are pretty common in India as what we can call pet names, which was given to me by my father. My real name is a very long name, which was given to me by my paternal grandfather, the doctor. It's Sarv Kalyan, which I laugh about it. It is a word which means that one who wants salvation for all. But Tony has always stuck, and I can understand. Thank you kindly. I can understand that. I can understand your question, but it's not something I did after immigrating to Canada or something. I was always Tony.
So I think this now, for example, having this name Sarv Kalyan, and then people calling you Tony and Uberoi. So with your name, did you ever had any special affectionate bond, or it did not matter to you?
Fantastic question. First of all, I want to salute you for this question. So, Sarv Kalyan has always remained in the books only. Nobody has ever called me that, except my grandfather, who gave me that name. In school, I was called Kalyan, shortened to Kalyan. And even now, if I connect with my school friends, I'm Kalyan. Tony, as I said, was the pet name. Do I love any one of these? When I did my numerology, I think Kalyan is kind of lucky for me. I think Sarv Kalyan makes me a little serious kind of a guy. And Tony brings out the fun in me. I like all 3 names. I don't have a problem with that.
So that links me with this sort of the part of the numerology. So can you share when people use these names and the numbers and all that? So how does the name and the numerology, what is the connection or what is the secret of this part of the knowledge?
Okay. So remember I told you 9 planets, 9 vibrations, and 9 numbers, etc. Right? So if someone comes to me, I will ask them for their name, because each alphabet has the vibration of a number. Okay? So for example, you are Suhail, right? And your other name is Khalid, right? So instantly I would be able to tell you, because I cannot explain this. I can do this vibrational calculation so quickly in my mind. It would be harmonious for you to be called Suhail. Okay. So each alphabet has a number assigned to it. Now, for example, Tabby, I was telling her that you must move from this home. This is not harmonious for you. And I know she is moving hopefully in March into a new home. That is going to be very harmonious for her. So I do see all these things and I give suggestion. It would be license plate, it could of your vehicle, it could be the number of your home. It could also be date. So for example, someone has a court date and it's to be on a certain date. I'll tell them, you know what, try to take an adjournment because this date is not good for you. And people who have actually benefited from it will agree that yes, there is some kind of a truth to it. So the answer to your question is that yes, names, name vibrations, numbers, number vibrations, all these, if we keep them in sync and harmony, then at least the benefit is that a negative will not come to us. And some positive does come in. And vice versa, if it is not, then obstacles, challenges, hardships will come into our lives. And it's not, I want to say one thing, please, sorry I interrupted you, that it's a science, it's not superstition, because people who do not know this, they think, oh, I don't want to be superstitious that the house is not good for me or not, you know. It's not superstition, there is a science to this. The parapsychological science has researched this and found that these things occur.
So you feel that the name, the date of birth, as well as the astrological sort of the signs or the planets, so you feel that there's a connection between these
100%, yes.
So we were talking about your education and finishing the school and all that. So before coming to Canada, were you professionally working in India before coming here?
Well, yes, I was with my father in his automobile spares business. That was our principal business. And a few years before coming to Canada, just for the heck of it, I started to do this professionally for my pocket money.
Oh, I see.
And that became, I mean, I was doing it. I did readings for so many people who I knew, but I was doing it free of charge. And then I had circumstances happened. I wanted to do it for my pocket money, and I was quite afraid of doing it because I'm the son of a businessman, etc. And I remember approaching a friend of mine who gave me a very good advice. He said, Tony, you do free readings for people who can easily afford to pay. And because it is free, they don't value the advice you give them. So why don't you charge? If you don't want the money, give it away in charity. Well, I did not give it away in charity, I will say. But that became the kind of foundation and basis. And then when I came to Canada, I wanted to do this only to begin my life and get into some kind of business, import or auto parts or something like that. But it's 25 years I've just done this and nothing else. But I will want to stress, I never thought, planned or wanted to do this professionally.
So let's go back to another side of your life, another dimension, and that is the dimension of relationships with women. When and how did you decide that you want to get married and have a family?
I think in India, the individual does not decide it. Circumstances and families decide. So I can call myself, again, my favorite word, the freak in the family, because most of my cousins, etc., who were even younger to me were already married, and it did not bother me. It did not bother me at all. I got married at the age of 27, which within the families was rather late, you know. So because of my education and things like that, and circumstances, I was not even interested. And then my father slowly started to push me towards this. As you are aware, in our country, the arranged marriage system prevails. Some of it prevails even now, but the Western influence has changed things. But at my time, it was very prevalent within our families, and so it just happened that a common friend linked our family to my in-laws family, my wife's family, and I got about 7 minutes to talk to her. 7 minutes for both of us to decide whether we can spend our life together.
It was on the phone or face to face?
No, face to face. There was no COVID then.
Okay. Yeah. So, and where did this meeting take place?
In that common friend's home,
Yeah.
and that's how it came to be.
Yeah. So in that choice of getting married, did you give some significance of her compatibility from astrological or palmistry or numerology, or it was just more of an emotional choice?
This is a very nice question, and you are going to enjoy the answer.
Yeah.
I actually was not even ready for that meeting, and when I went with a state of mind that, okay, I'm going to try and convince that this does not go forward. And the lady who is my wife, and I think the biggest blessing in my life, in fact, I joke with her sometimes that she is my blessing and I'm her curse in this lifetime. Words cannot describe what a wonderful wife, mother, daughter-in-law, sister-in-law she is. So I had not done any of these things. And then I realized after I got engaged to her that we are not compatible. And for so many years, I kept asking myself, if this compatibility is so beautiful, at least for me, then how did this happen? And would you believe it? I think about a few months back, or maximum a year back, my wife found out that the date that was given to her was wrong.
Oh,
so when I got the new date, I realized why we are compatible. So, had I done the homework? No, I would not have gotten married.
So, in your sort of time of the wedding and the marriage and all that, what do you feel your sister's sort of response to you getting married and all that? How did they respond?
Oh, they loved my wife, who is my wife. She was my wife to be, and my younger sister, who is about 16 and a half, 17 years younger, we together have and still always see her as our first daughter, you know, and so did my other. We are very tight, closely knit family, full of love, and the credit goes to my wife.
So now let me come to your coming to Canada. So how did you decide that it is the time for you to leave India and come to the Western world? How did that happen?
It did not happen very nicely, because prior to this, coming here, I had immigrated to Spain. I have a very dear friend who helped me, and this was just before Spain became a part of the EU, European Union.
What year are we talking about?
1987-88.
Okay.
And things did not pan out well for me. nothing worked for me in Spain, and I was dejected. I went back, and I thought I will never ever leave India to even go for a vacation. And look where I am, you know. So this is why I say destiny pushes you. Then circumstances happened. I met a Canadian consultant who helped me, and when I got the Canadian immigration, I was still not very sure that because in my mind the Spanish failure, if I may call it, was in my mind. But believe me, Dr. Sohail, when I landed in Canada, I came home to Canada, and everything, whatever little success my wife and I have had, it just happened rather than we did it. Did I plan coming to Canada? No. I told you I don't plan, and I'm a lost soul, and I landed here.
So, when that planning or sort of whatever the circumstances were happening, what was your wife and children's reaction or their feelings about leaving India and coming to?
They were excited.
Yeah.
They were excited.
So give me some sense that when you first came, obviously immigrant, especially if immigrant is a married person and has wife and children and family and responsibilities and all those commitments. So what was the first year for you coming to Canada? How did you struggle as a new immigrant?
Honestly speaking, I did not struggle too much. I landed here, lived for about 6 to 8 weeks with a distant relative, and then my wife joined me in the interim, and then we took up an apartment, and things just moved. My wife was a teacher back home, and she managed to get a teacher's job here. But 8 months into being here, my father had a major stroke in India. He was to, ultimately join us here, and at that time I thought, just like the Spanish debacle for me, this is going to be the end of this. But somehow or the other, there was a miraculous recovery, and because I have a sister in the US, she had put in his application for green card. That came to be, and things just happened, and then ultimately he came here in the year 1999, and unfortunately, because of his health issues, he had strokes and things like that, bypass surgery twice. We lost him in '06, and my mother's still with me, God bless her soul. But I don't think we really struggled. There was a force pushing us, helping us. And I also want to thank the people of Canada who are so welcoming to new immigrants, and my children were able to become a part of the Canadian culture very easily.
So after coming to Canada, what was your, before you actually experienced it, what was your impression that Indian people or Pakistani or South Asian, their sort of impression of this whole intuitive sort of...
See, in India, you are probably aware, it is very prevalent. People go to astrologers just as you have your family physician or your family lawyer or accountant. You also have your family astrologer. So India, I knew. I was not very sure about the Pakistanis, and with absolute respect, I say this. Is it against their culture? Is it against their religion or not? But I want to share something which I hope nobody is offended. I speak 5 languages from that part of the world. fluently.
Mm.
And so I went to Gerrard Street, the Little India, and in fact that is where Tabby met me for the first time, and I set up shop there, but I was not successful.
Mm.
So somehow or the other, the South Asians did not like the way I talked. They wanted some kind of talisman or something else, some magical thing, and I did not sell snake oil, you know. So I was not successful with them. But as soon as I got my break in the mainstream, success came to me.
And how did that link happen with the Canadian
Someone
system?
told me that there are psychic fairs and wellness fairs and health fairs where you can try and get into. And my very first psychic fair, I did well. And then somehow I understood that the mainstream Canadians seem to understand me better. I have a better tuning with them. And even now, except you.
So give me a sort of an idea of the type of practice that you have, and how did that change in the last decade, kind of thing.
Very nice question. Very nice question. When I came here and started to do this work about 25 years back, it was tainted, looked down upon. They saw you as a charlatan who is not genuine. But there was a certain group of people who believed in this, who were ready to pay for the services, and that is how my practice, if I may say, began. I started in a very small apartment, and my first 2 clients, would you believe it, I still keep an absolute touch with them. The very first client, I call her my good luck charm, and even now, occasionally when she calls me, I will tell her, please send me some good vibes, and magic begins to happen for me. My second client was a gentleman who's more than a brother to me, and so that's how I started in the small apartment, and then with the grace of the Lord, we now have a home, a house, and I have my office there. And the big shift that came 10 years back or somewhere around there is the internet. So through the internet, people began to read up about all this, and now I'm fascinated how much youngsters, 25-year-olds come to me and know, and they'll say, I have this client, does it mean this? I have read this, I read about you. They do their research. So that is the one major shift. Secondly, I will not say it is respected, because it still does not have the respect in North America. In Europe it does, in India it does. It does not have the respect here, but it is gaining more popularity, and at least the disrespect is gone. Another shift and change that I have seen is from the way I do things is I added more and more things like astrology, numerology, palms, tarot cards, and so many things. But I started to do something called emotional makeover. Because I'm sensitive, I would feel people's emotions. Then I started to help them. To put it quite bluntly, I will say that you, as a psychoanalyst, work with the brain, the head, the thoughts, etc. But I work with the feelings. So that is another service I have added. I constantly research, constantly. I never ever feel, I wake up every day thinking, I'm a blank and I have to learn something, I've learned a lot by observation. I love to observe people. I'm a lover of people. I'm terrible at technology. I know nothing. My children make fun of me. But when it comes to people, I like to know how they take, etc. Another change that has happened in the last 10 years is through technology. Today we can do readings by phone, by WhatsApp video, Skype, and you know, all kinds of such things. But the biggest shift that has happened is that people are beginning to realize that there is something beyond. There is something beyond. What that is, each one calls it by their own names. But they are saying that there is something beyond the logical world.
So we talked a little bit about the planets, and then the connection at birth, and the numbers, the letters of the name. How does this all connect with the palm and the lines on the palm and the palmistry?
So if you've kind of understood what I said about all that, the same planets are indicated on the palm. So the below the fingers, we call these areas mounts. So the same planets have been given to these mounts, like Mercury, Sun, Saturn, Jupiter, Venus, Moon. So it's an imprint of the same thing. I may humbly say this, that sometimes people come to me, they've given me their date of birth, I make their astrological chart, look at their palm, and I'll say something is wrong. And then they'll say, oh, I gave you the wrong year or something. So it has to, be the same. It is all interconnected.
So most of your sort of people that come, that approach you or consult you, what will be one or two or three sort of a more common sort of their wish or desire, or what they are looking from you, what kind of sort of their wish or need is them to approach you?
So before I answer your question, I would like to say that about 95% of my clients are women, only 5% are males, and that percentage is increasing, fortunately. And the big questions are love and money. The big question are love and money. There is no third. I mean, it could be an offshoot of all this, and within the love it could be family also, and within the money it could also be, am I buying a new house or things like that. Very, very few people will ever ask a question like, will I serve my parents, or how will I grow spiritually, etc. But it's love and money.
So the what is the sort of the common sort of the consultation? Is it a one-time consultation, or people keep on consulting you for weeks, months, years? How does that work?
I don't tell anyone to come back. And within the time frame that they want to pay me for, half an hour, 1 hour, 3 hour consultancy, depending on each person's time and pocket, I try to make it, I give them as much information as I can, and I focus more on their questions or their burning problems at that time. But I don't tell anyone to come back. It's not like, even I think your profession, you must be calling people back, right? And I respect that. I'm not, but I don't call anyone back. If they feel a need, they do.
So I know it's sort of very subjective, but just wanted to get a sense so that people have an idea. So when somebody approaches you, whether it's physical presence or online or on the video, what do you go through in that process, that half an hour, 1 hour? What is that for you while you are sort of making that intuitive sort of connection or experience? What is that for you?
Let's go back to our first meeting 2 weeks back. I told you, after sitting exactly in this chair here, I said to you, when I entered, I saw you and I immediately connected with you. Do you remember I said that? Now, that was purely social, if I may say. There was no exchange of anything between us, or what I mean financially. But if it's a client, then I would say that my intuitive radar is on. Usually I need about 3 to 5 seconds, and my work is done in my intuition. And then I'm taking them through the process of face reading, auras, astrology, numerology, cards, etc., to explain to them more detail, or for them to feel convinced, yes, this is the way I should move forward. So it's not like I am intuitively all the time doing something. Yes, the intuition is on. If they ask something or if they say something, I do pick up. But the process is now more for them to understand. From intuition, it comes to more logic, so that I can speak their language to them.
Now, let me ask you a question. As the in the English vocabulary, they call it a devil's advocate. That because many people are skeptical, so there is a general sense that for one genuine person who's intuitive, there might be 9 who are pretending to be intuitive, but they may not be genuinely intuitive. So a common person who doesn't know the difference, how would somebody know that who is genuine and who is not genuine or fake, and they're just doing this for whatever reason? What will be so if somebody wants to consult, how would you, like we say, to go and see a therapist who is genuinely wants to help you as compared to somebody who's not that qualified or not that professional. So in your profession, in your field, how would people know that which person is genuine and which one is not?
I don't think there is a way of knowing immediately. There is no formula. I can only, rather than say genuine and non-genuine, I will say one who is evolved and one who is not. And it's impossible, because when I'm sitting at a psychic fair and I look at all the people, I ask myself this question: if Dr. Suhail was to enter this room, how would he know who should he go to? Each one is trying to market themselves. Each one is trying to say whatever. I will only say one thing, that it's like cuisine. You may have been born in South Asia, but you may love Italian cuisine, for example, right? So you must have tried all different cuisine to know you like Italian. Similarly, people go through all this is a very personal service. So they go through a few people. It's a trial and error method at times. But then there are clients who are themselves intuitive, who will say, boom, this is the person. I know this is the person for me. But no, it's impossible to gauge who is good or not.
Now, let me go to a different sort of field, and that is the field of what we use SOUL. We use the word soul. And in our discussion, you use the word soul connection or soul mate or soul whatever. So when you say the soul connection, can you sort of share what do you mean by this, 2 people having this soul connection? What does that mean to you?
Today, soulmates has become a very common term used on the street, I should say. But people perhaps do not understand this. In fact, I have quite a few YouTube clips. I have made a special clip on soulmates. Soul connections are where your soul either left off, let's say we believe in reincarnation. So in the past life, if my soul had met your soul, and we left some unfinished work, and in this lifetime, you have come to do it. For example, you have traveled over 100 kilometers, thank you for that, and there is no exchange of anything, finances or anything. Why are you doing this, right? There must be a soul connection. Why am I fascinated by you? There must be a soul connection. Let's say that reincarnation does not exist. But within this lifetime, our soul is our souls are connected, and an exchange has to happen. So I'll be very honest with you. Out of all these subjects, my biggest fascination and my deepest study has been soul connections. I'm sure you have met people in your life where even today there is a mystery. Why did this person come into my life and help me? Or the other way around, why did he or she come into my life and ruin me either financially or emotionally or otherwise, right? Let's take Tabby and I, for example. She came to the store that I was then sitting in, and she put her palms forward and she said that I would like you to give me a reading. And I closed her palms and I said, you are yourself an intuitive, and why are you asking me? And that became the reason for our connection. So why would that happen? Why would she come on that day? You know, why would she come to that place? She usually doesn't go there, etc., etc. So I do believe that there are soul connections between people, both for good and bad, and we have obviously to be careful of the bad. Now, in everyday life, people call it vibes. So why do we vibe with one person and not with the other? I think on a deeper level it is soul connection.
Now I think because this word soul is very sort of embedded with a lot of meaning, so let me give you my sort of exposure. So when I was growing up, because I was surrounded by more of Muslims or Christians because I went to convent school. So the Christians, the Muslims, the Jews, what we call it the monotheistic religion, followers of Middle Eastern monotheistic religion, their concept of life after death is that there is a soul separate from the body that enters the body at a certain level of pregnancy, and then at the time of death leaves, and then it stays somewhere in the world till what they call as the day of judgment, and that day the soul appears and is judged a good action or bad action, and then heaven and hell and purgatory, all based on that. So the Jewish, Muslim and Christian soul never comes back to earth. But on the other hand, the Indian philosophy of Hindu mythology that keeps on coming back, you know. So when you meet those people who believe in this day of judgment and all that, and they approach you with this reincarnation sort of the tradition, how do you sort of respond to these? Because Canadians are mostly Christian, so if they believe in that kind of a soul of the day of judgment, so how do you, when they ask or engage you in that discussion, how do you approach those Christians who say that this reincarnation sort of philosophy does not jive with their philosophy of day of judgment? How do you relate to those Christians?
I may have been born in a Hindu family, but I don't necessarily adhere to one or the other. The first thing is I respect everybody's belief system, and I do not try to convince them of anything else. So if that is their belief system, I salute it, so be it. The reason is we have not gone beyond to know the truth, and why should we know everything? So if we are waiting for the day of the judgment, at the day of the judgment, ultimately we will be judged by our karmic, I'm using a Hindu word, but today it has become a part of the English vocabulary, our thoughts, word and actions with what we have performed in this life. And if we go by the theory of reincarnation, then we do come back and we're trying to for want of expression, polish ourselves to become better, 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 and then ultimately go back to what I would call Godhead. So ultimately, whether it is by judgment or with one time soul exposure or coming back several times, ultimately you want to go back to where you came from, because it is believed that the soul is a part of the infinite and it wants to go back to the infinite. So I respect each and every belief and I don't try to convince anyone. So if they say this is my belief, I salute it.
Now, one of the questions is that when you were growing up in India with that kind of a family and cultural background, the concept of, that we heard the name in in Persian they call it Khuda.
Yes.
The word Khuda.
Yeah.
Muslims call it Allah.
Right.
For Christians it is God, and for Hindu tradition Bhagwan, the word Bhagwan.
Correct.
So, how your view of that sort of that belief or that concept of that idea of Bhagwan or Allah or God or whatever it might be called, from when you were 15 to when you were sort of 50, in that sort of 20, 30, 40 years, how did your view of that sort of image evolve over the years? How did that change for you?
Because of my grandfather, and I should say my parents as well, who were of a spiritual background, that concept of God was ingrained. So, never mind what we call it, that God is there. Alright? Therefore, I'm not an atheist. I do believe there is a God. And we, depending on where we are born and our culture and our belief and the language we speak, we call it by a certain name. So I don't think anything has changed. The only thing that has changed is that a lot of people have, I think, wrong beliefs that if we do this, we will go to, I'm using a word which is commonly used, hell and heaven and all that. I don't know that. I don't question it. But I do say that if we even try to be just human, not even good human beings, I think we've done our job. We will make a few mistakes, but we were born to be imperfect. So as long as we are not trying to hurt anyone in our thoughts and feelings, I think we've done a good job.
Now, let me ask you a couple of philosophical questions, because we did touch the last time that we informally chatted. One of the questions that comes to my mind is that some people connect spirituality with religion, and some people feel that they are two different things, and the people who are spiritual, they basically do not adhere to any formal religion or formal tradition or formal practices or rituals. They feel that spirituality is completely independent of the traditional religion. So I was curious what connection or lack of connection or no connection you see between any traditional religion and spirituality.
So if religion is to be taken like an example, formal education, and spirituality is to be taken as intellect and wisdom, some people need the formal education before it is polished and they can do it. And some people can do it without going through formal education. I do think spirituality is much larger, religion is a pathway. But if someone has any other viewpoints, I'm willing to accept it. This is my viewpoint.
The same way we talked last time about the connection of love with marriage. Some people feel that marriage kills love, and some feel that they are more the two sides. One is social acceptance of a certain relationship, and one is the more emotional or more spiritual connection. How do you see, because even when you said it's not about religion, it's not about marriage, it is about that special union or something. So how do you see the institution of marriage as compared to the institution of love? The reason I'm asking is that in certain cultures, love outside marriage not only is not liked or cherished, it is connected with sin, and people have suffered, and it is because it is not socially acceptable, that kind of love. So how do you see the experience of love and the whole tradition of marriage?
I will want to leave the sin or non-sin aside. And again, I respect anyone or any background who believe what they believe. Let's take two words, love and marriage. Love is God-made, marriage is man-made. So there was a time when marriage was not existing, but love was existing. The way things are going on, people talk of open marriages, this kind of marriage and all. Will it exist another 100 years later? We do not know. But love will always exist, right? I think love is as integral a part of us as our soul is. And it's a force. Nobody is stronger than love. So if I have to love someone in my life and that connection is to happen, it has nothing to do with marriage. And we would love to have marriages full of love, or even if there's a love without marriage, I think love is much larger. You have heard of these proverbs like love is God and things like that. That must be so, because if God is who He is, the generator, operator, destroyer, God of the whole universe, it must be another form of love or a higher form of love.
So I think now I want to sort of approach sort of the discussion from a more broader perspective, from an evolutionary point of view. Your understanding of human evolution of the last 5,000-10,000 years, where what we call as a known history. Obviously, human beings have been there for maybe a million years or whatever. Whatever the known history or whatever known, where the books and the thoughts or the ideas of the ideals that people got recorded, and now we know what Socrates or Confucius or Zarathustra or Buddha or whatever. So
you are very well read.
Thank you. So these traditions that were in different parts of the world, and we, I call them, that sort of more of it's the traditions of different wisdom, different forms of wisdom. How do you see in man living at the time of Buddha, that generation, whatever, maybe there were 5 million or whatever, now we are 7 billion. How do you see the change of human psyche, human personality, human relationships? What change you feel has happened from Buddha's time to 500 BC to 2020, that is like 2,000-3,000 years? How do you feel that human beings have evolved? They're wiser today, generally, except exceptions, or you feel that the people at Buddha's time were wiser and now they have kind of, because of the technology or the greed or their personal ambitions, they have progressed or they have regressed? What is your thoughts about human evolution?
These are my thoughts, and I respect everyone else's thoughts. I keep saying this because I hate controversy on these subjects. I personally feel that human beings inquire more now, which is good. But we have gone away from the spirituality and intuition and gone too much into logic. All right? Everything has become seeing is believing. Show me the proof. Where is the evidence? But if we just change that to believing is seeing, we see everything differently. It's a shift that is required. So the percentage of people may have been the same then or now. Technology has both helped us and has become a hindrance also. I'm talking only in this realm, all right? It has definitely made our physical well-being better. Mentally, it has given us a lot. But emotionally and spiritually, we will always have to work, you know. So definitely we have to learn and act more and more with love. We should not be moving away from love, otherwise we will become efficient robots, and we should not be that. And the mysterious part, the mysticism as you called it, the spirituality, that part which we cannot understand will always be there. It was there, it will be there. I'm going to give you an analogy. If there were 5 million and we are 7.5 billion or whatever, think of that as a smaller party. People were enjoying then and people were miserable then. Now it's a larger party. People are enjoying now, people are miserable as well. History or whatever, I mean, with due respect to all the historians, we will never know all the truth. I have been witness to certain things, and when I read the account of that, it's totally different. Maybe it is subjective, maybe it's impossible to put it into words, and then history gets polished and shifted with time. So all the great things that they tell us about people born a few thousand years back and we feel that we have lost something, I don't think so. I think we're as much evolved if we want to be. We're as much loving as if we want to be. Institutions will come and go, but the basic human is the same. And that's why I keep going back to, let us just try to be human. That's all. The rest will automatically happen, because I even have a video on YouTube about this, happening and doing. We're giving too much importance to doing today. We're thinking we have everything, we have a handle on everything. We don't. I'm sorry. Lots is happening. We're being pushed into it, or there is this mystery of life which makes things happen. We, Dr. Sohail, you and I had a few refreshments earlier. Although you are a psychoanalyst and you are better with medical knowledge than I am, even you don't know how your digestive system is working, right? When we don't know about ourselves, how do we know about so many other things? So I don't think that in any shape or form the smaller party thousands of years back or the bigger party today is different. We can be happy today. There were miserable people then as well.
Now, let me ask you one from a different angle. I feel that everything in life has the bright side and the dark side. And sometimes I feel people's best quality sometimes can also become their worst quality. So being intuitive, or with having this sort of gift of intuitive sort of feelings or thoughts or whatever, awareness, what do you feel is the sort of the dark side of that you feel that all these experiences that you had, were there times or moments that you wished, that you thought that you knew, you wish you didn't know, or there were times you shared with people your truth with them and it was very hard for them to accept it or deal with it? What were the sort of the more sort of difficult side of this whole experience that you had?
Beautiful question again. Thank you for asking the question. But if you allow me, words can have very deep meanings at times. I'm going to take away the words dark and whatever. I'm going to just say the fun side of it and the challenge. Am I allowed to do that?
Sure.
So the fun side is that yes, I'm able to help people. Yes, I may know certain things which someone who is totally, who has not worked with the intuition, and it's almost non-existent for that person, or does not even believe that they have it. So that's the fun side, that I'm able to help people, and it has also become my profession and my life. I don't like to call it my livelihood. What is the challenge? And I salute you for the way you asked the question. The challenge is that, let us take Tabby for example. I'm telling her, don't do this because you could have fill in the blank problem. I'm unable to convince her because I don't have the right words, or she is caught up in her own set of circumstances which do not give her elbow room to make a shift or change. So I become a very passive bystander to see something happen which I knew and wrongly felt, I wrongly felt that there could have been changes because she's caught up in her own set of circumstances. So the challenge is knowing that I have tried to do my bit, act like a lighthouse, and yet the ship is, hitting the rock. The challenge also is not to get the correct or full message. It comes in garbled at times, and this becomes a challenge for my family, for my wife especially. Like I'll tell her, someone around us is going to have a problem. Who is that someone? What is the problem? I don't know. But now it has begun to bother me. So I have done this in the past, where I'll tell her, call up everyone in India and the people around to ask them if all is well, etc. So that half-baked intuitive message is very disturbing for me. When I see it absolutely crystal clear, and it takes me a long time to convince the person, and I'll give you an example. Approximately at the time when Tavi and I met, there was a gentleman who came to the store and met me where I was. He's from your fraternity. He's a celebrated psychiatrist, and just like you and I instantly connected, I instantly connected with him. And the first time I went to his mansion, it wasn't a house, it was a mansion by the lake. I told him, get out of here, this is not a good place for you. It took me 3 years of convincing, and I gave it up, and finally he realized that so many things are going wrong in my life, and when he moved, things became right. Just yesterday I had a telephone conversation with him, and he was saying, I wish I had listened to you. It would have saved me a lot of unhappiness at that time. So one is this kind of a challenge. The other challenge is being super sensitive. I will pick up their emotions. I tell my clients not to be a sponge of other people's emotion, but I'm probably the worst sponge. And so now I've picked up their sadness or their loneliness or some negative emotion, and I have to try and get rid of it, and it's not easy. Another challenge with this intuitiveness for me, it may not be for others, is, as I said, I'm a lost soul, or that absent-minded professor or whatever. Being in the here and now in this logical world is a challenge that most people cannot believe. For them, they will say, come on, can't you see it? Come on, can't you do that? Come on, it's so easy. But not to me. And reverse that. I am saying the same thing to them. Come on, this is not good for you. But they will continue to do it. Um, the fun part is less, I will tell you. The challenge is more. The suffering is more than the joy of helping people because of the resistance. But when I'm able to convince them, then the joy is boundless.
So now that you are sort of at this stage of your life, you know, you have seen the struggles, you experienced the ups and downs, and you know, you went through the immigration and the family and all that. So when sometimes when you look back at your life, the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years of life, what kind of feeling did you have when you look back?
I think my entire life there was a force that pushed me, and whenever I did not listen to that intuitive force, I paid a price for it. Whenever I listened to it, I got the advantage. Now I act and listen more and more. I will not say that I'm totally listening to it all the time or acting on it all the time. My own personality, my own ego takes over, but I'm trying to let it go. Sometimes I succeed, sometimes I don't. But the biggest shift that has come in me is, and I must tell you one thing. My greatest teacher, challenger, helper has been my wife. I think she's more intuitive, more practical than I am. I think she helps me a great deal, understands me, shares the challenges with me, inspires me. But one thing we both believe 100% is that whatever has happened in our lives, we were just the actors. It's like the drama was already there. It happened. We didn't do it.
So I think now I'm coming to sort of the closer to the end. I was curious last time because all this, our interview was inspired by your one sentence, and that was you said you always wanted to write a book, and you thought that maybe
Don't make it the last question because from my perspective, this part is the most important.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I was curious that when did you have the desire to write a book? And I'm sure you tried many times to make it into a reality. So what did that sort of whole experience mean to you? Because I offered that, I thought and I still feel that this interview that we are having today could be the seed, it could be the beginning, it could be sort of the first step towards that wish or that goal.
I wish I wanted to be. Thank you.
You know. So I think give me an idea that in the last few weeks or months or whatever, that wish to write the book and share whatever your life experiences, like what did the writing a book meant to you or means to you?
I love writing. I love language. I love people. So for me, writing would be, sorry for my expression, would be like making love. In my university days, I got some awards for it. I used to do things like write a poem for my friends, what their feelings were towards someone, etc. And then happy to know that they got married, etc. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm not even blaming myself. The reason is I went through a lot, and at some point, maybe a writer's block came up. I feel that I have at least 20 books in my head. Have I tried to write several times? I will write one paragraph or a chapter or two chapters, and then I don't know what happens. So I don't pursue it. If you were to ask me what is the real problem, I would say I don't pursue it. Do I have the book in my head? Yes. And I don't necessarily want to write on the subjects of my profession, but I'm a fun person, so I want to write some fun things also. I want to share with people. I love language. I love conversation also, you know. So to me, a book is a conversation with the reader, whoever is the reader. It doesn't matter how many they are. Yes, I do want to write, and if this is the seed or the inspiration, I want to thank you for it. But let me ask you a question. Am I allowed to ask you a question? Why is it not forthcoming? Why do I stop somewhere? And I'm going to tell you how I feel about it. Being a businessman's son, being a person who has had to do things for money commercially, etc., I feel, who will read my book and will it be a financial success? What would you like to say about that?
I think to me, because I just met you.
And because you are a writer, how many books have you written?
Maybe 40.
See?
Yeah.
So you're a very successful writer.
I think obviously this is a personal sort of experience. I have this notion that there is a difference between creative expression and creative communication. Creative expression is just for oneself. One can write, tear it apart, throw it in the garbage, or put it in the drawer and just
Forget.
And one is sort of creative communication where you are writing for one human being or 100 or 1,000 or whatever. So I feel that to write a book, to communicate with someone, it needs some, what I call it, my word is a homework. The homework is not only the ideas, it has to go through a process where it is, I think I don't know whether I gave you the example last time or not. As a child, I was fascinated with the magnifying glass. So as a child, I will go to the park, take a piece of paper and have the sun, and then the magnifying glass will focus on that. And I think they use the word in Urdu, yaksui, that focus. So I feel that many people who are creative people, because they are not organized by nature as a creative person, they are not that focused, they don't have that discipline. So it is a combination of the freedom of the creativity and the discipline of an organized person. So I have known dozens and dozens of writers, artists, filmmakers. They have unfinished projects. The film half made, the CD half made, the book half made. I call them, from my language or terminology, I call them creative miscarriages. It never reaches full term. It never has because I used to work in the labor room, 9 months and 7 days. So to me, I start with the end. I put the name of the book and I say 150 pages, 15 chapters. For example, I was driving here. So I thought, meeting you, a very fascinating human being, I thought maybe I should write a book of 10 inspiring personalities that I met in my life, for example. So Tony Uberoi could be one. And then I met Sohan Kadri. And then I met, etc. Like, I was lucky to meet these people in my life. So that is now an idea. That thought just came while I was driving.
So you are saying that I'm not focused, correct? Yeah. You are saying I'm not organized, correct? So how should I bring the focus and organization?
So I think that is, to me, because I'm not a religious person, I use that, my creativity, as my like a secular worship. So I realized, knowing myself, that Saturday morning, Sunday morning, Monday morning, Tuesday morning, I have dedicated 1 to 2 hours, 4 times a week for this process. Give you one example. I had a lady, just give you one story before we finish this. I had a lady, she was in her 60s. She came to me, sent by from Scarborough Hospital, because at the age of 65, 66, after 35 years of marriage, one morning at breakfast table, her husband gave her a scrambled piece of paper, and she scrambled the paper in front of me to show me. When she opened it, it was written that the 35 years of my life that I spent with you was an utter waste of time.
The husband is telling the wife.
He packed his suitcase, got up, and he left, never to come back. My patient fell apart. The golden years, we have this retirement and this and this and this. So she got depressed. She went to one psychiatrist, they gave the medication, to another psychiatrist, third psychiatrist. The fourth one said, you should go to Dr. Suri. So she came. So I listened and I traveled. She was a British background, very sort of intelligent, creative. So I usually, the people who have the breakdown, I'm talking about my practice, I ask them that you had a life before you met this man or this woman. What was that life before you met? So I asked her the same question. She says, I was an art teacher, I was a painter, I had students, and I loved what I did, and that made me happy. So I said, this is a creative psychotherapy clinic. Forget about depression and forget about the loss and all that. Let's tune into your creativity. How can we do that? She challenged me. She said, Dr. Sohail, if I said to you, you write a poem, you will not be able to write a poem. It should come to you, then you write. And I said, yeah, that's true. But if you wait for it, it comes more frequently. That's the key. When you sit and wait, it doesn't come, but it does.
Very well put.
Okay. So I said to her, as part of your therapy, creative psychotherapy, 3 times a week, you buy a new easel, you buy the new brushes, you buy the new paint, spend $100 on it, and you sit there half an hour, 3 times a week for the next 6 weeks. Tony, you would not believe. The first week, nothing happened. Second week, third week. The fourth week, she had this inspiration. She painted, you would not believe, she painted a guy selling apples. He had a trolley, and these apples, the way she made, there was this heap of it. They were so 3-dimensional that it felt as if you touch it, they're all going to fall. That's beautiful. It was just incredible. She sold the
Lifelike.
She sold the first painting for $400, second $600, the third $700. Then she met this other man who was an artist. So that's a long story. The point I was trying to share is that muse that I talked about, the muse that brings these gifts from wherever, needs this wholehearted attention that she, before she gives you the gift of writing or painting or poem or story or novel or book, she wants to be sure that you have full dedication, you have full commitment to this sort of what I call the muse. So I think, so to me, I learned that I am starting a project to finish the project, not. So I think, to me, my suggestion to you or any
and
artist,
I should be waiting for her.
And you have to dedicate that time that you feel is the most. For me, it's the morning. There are people there, for them it's the evening. For some, at the middle of the night when everybody is sleeping. So I think when you wait for that, then after a while it starts to come. Then you create, and then in the beginning, as you said, so for me, all these things. If I'm talking from a medical point of view, the left brain, you see, that was the other awareness for doctors or neurologists. Human beings did not know that we have 2 brains, not 1 brain. So the left brain is more logical, rational to solve day-to-day problems. The right brain, where the creativity, the spirituality, and even the insanity, the psychotic breakdown, all 3 of them are related to the right brain. So we have a hard time connecting. So when all the meditations and all the spending time alone is to go from the left brain that we spend most of the time day to day to survive, to go to the right brain. I do that by leaving my practice and all that. I go for a week. And the moment I'm at the airport, the more I'm disconnected with my practice and routine and whatever, then I could feel that as if there is a movement from the left brain to the right brain, as if you pull out the plug from the left brain and you tune into the right brain. And it starts to come in. I think Terry will tell you that the gift that I brought for you, The Seeker, my autobiography, I had to do some homework. The homework was I wanted to share my life story with the world, but I did not want it to be 1,000 pages. I wanted to write in 100 pages. Can I tell whatever I have to tell the world in 100 pages? That's that I can ask for people's 2 hours of their life. The second thing was I didn't write as I did this, I did this, I did this. To me, that will be boasting about myself, very narcissistic, whatever. So I created a alter ego. The alter ego was Khizr, because in the mythological sort of tradition, Khizr is symbol, is not a person. Khizr is a symbol of somebody, a stranger who helps you. If you're lost on Young Street and you don't know where CN Tower is, a stranger comes and says, where are you going? CN Tower. Go on front street, turn right, and you'll be seen. So that person is Khizr. So I thought in my practice as a therapist, I'm a stranger, people come for 2 months, 3 months, I help them, and then they go their own way, I never see them. So symbolically, I said I'm Khizr. Then I said, who cares who will read my book? I'm not Nelson Mandela, or I'm not,
Celebrity.
so what? So they have to get something out of it. So what I did, I symbolically created images. So when you will read the book, every person that I learned something from, that inspired me, that I learned lessons of life, I call them LOL, lessons of life, I gave them a sort of a title or a symbol. So Khizr is born in the land of tradition, Pakistan. His mother's name is spirituality. His mother's name is religion. His father's name is spirituality. His grandmother's name is wisdom. His uncle's name is creativity. His sister's name is friendship. So each character has this symbolism. So once I did that homework, that was my... Then I left the practice, went to California, sat by the pool, and Tony, you would not believe, it started to come. I was connected, and I don't know where it came from. 5 pages, 10 pages, 15 pages. I wrote and wrote and wrote. I basically wrote 100 pages, the whole book, in maybe 3 weeks. Then I came back, and then I read it again after a week, and then I realized that there was one character that was not human, that I learned a lot. And that was, I mentioned last time, Lake Skewgog in Port Perry, where I sit under the tree. So there is the last chapter that made Debbie cry. I made that lake as my friend, because that lake is my friend. She welcomes me, I sit there, I have an ice cream, right, and whatever. So I think that homework that I did, and obviously this 2 hours thing of the seeker is, sort of my 60 years of, whatever life experience. So I think coming up with a sort of the language that is closer to your heart, you are the man of the heart, and then finally it starts to flow. So I felt from meeting you last week that you call it a spiritual connection, I call it a creative connection. That I felt that you have a creativity inside you, raw material, you have all, if I gave the analogy of a fridge, if I open it, I see it, you have the lettuce, you have the tomato, you have, although you don't eat meat, but from my side, you have the chicken, the beef, the fish, everything. The only thing you're missing is the menu, what you're going to serve. You have a lot you have so much to serve, but you have to know, I say that knowledge, intelligence tells us what to do, and wisdom tells us what not to do, what not to say. So I think you are struggling, you have so much to share, so much to offer, what not to share, what not to offer. I think you have the 99 beads of the tasbih or the rosary bead. The thing that you're looking for is the thread that connects all of them. The moment you have that thread, and I hope that this interview becomes that thread for you, that's my gift for you.
Thank you.
That I think that when we transcribe that, then you are free to edit, to add, to subtract, whatever. I think this is basically a symbol of your life, your message, your experience, which I didn't want to get into too much academic discussion with you about certain concepts. It was more to bring you live as a human being who has special gifts, from whatever we call it, genes or nature or God or doesn't matter. But you have some extraordinary qualities, and you, in your own way, you share. I'm not in that field, so I cannot, Tabby might have a better idea. But I know from a creative point of view that you're a highly creative person, and you care for people. That's why I said that you want to. Generosity is kindness and caring, and whatever gift you have, and whoever is the recipient, they come and they receive it. So I hope, and I wish, this is my gift to you, that this will inspire you, and once you transcribe it, then it might sort of lead you to the next sort of the next sort of the stage. But I think Debbie is mentioning she wants to ask me to talk about. I think we talked about the soulmate. Did you want to say something? He did talk about the soulmate.
Not about soulmate.
Yeah, no, we,
Okay, we can talk
Sure.
about the
Okay.
soulmate.
Okay, we want to that sort of. I think because Debbie has been the host of all this and
course.
arranged all that. So
Of course.
that is her question from her side. That maybe you can before we end it,
Sure.
you can give sort of your thoughts about the soulmate, and then we'll share.
A lot of people think that soulmate is only the better half romantically. Such is not true. Soulmates could be your best friends, soulmates could be teachers, soulmates could be people who come into your life and just help you, could also be your commercial partners, financial partners. But today I think, as I told you earlier, there are basically two questions, the money or the love. So obviously a lot of people are today seeking that soul connection, the true love, etc. If we believe in the Hindu tradition, then one may have to go through many lifetimes before you meet your soulmate. If we believe in the one life, then you may not meet that person in this life. But let us say that you are destined to meet the person in this life. What should you do to connect with that person? Let me first answer that. I think the first thing is, don't make a picture. When we make a logical picture, we will miss that person. So don't make a logical picture that he has to be 6 feet tall or she has to have a perfect figure or how much money or whatever. Secondly, do not expect it to happen logically. It's an accident waiting to happen. A good accident. The third is, do not just think that you will benefit from that. The other party will also benefit because you will complete and complement each other. It's a very, just like you said about the right brain, that the genius as well as insanity are sitting in the same area. The soulmate can also become a wound mate. They know what is lacking in you or what you need or your weaknesses, and they could take advantage of that. The soulmate is of different types, but then within the soulmate, the nth, the final for the soul connection, for the love, is twin soul. Who is your twin? There are so many different explanations to that. I do not wish to go into that. All could be right, all could be wrong. But the explanation is, being together will make one whole, and it is just like they are your shadow, the opposite picture, the reflection, whatever you want to call it. That is an ultimate romantic experience leading to a spiritual awakening. So people who manage to get that, I've said this in my short YouTube video also, that as a human being you cannot get a better gift. So no amount of money, no amount of fame, no amount of anything compares to connecting with your twin soul. Those who are wanting to connect like this, they first have to connect with their own soul before they will connect with someone else's soul. Also know that such souls who will become your soulmates are looking for you, because they are incomplete without you. But then that ultimate twin soul is absolutely incomplete without you as you are. And so you must send the thought waves and the emotional waves into ether. The nth point of everything is ether, where everything is recorded. And in ether, because of those records, that magic will happen. I assure you, you will meet that person. But don't think he has to be 6 feet tall. He could be 5 feet. He could be young. Younger, older, of different religion, of whatever. But one thing is there: it never comes without a challenge. Never. So it is not like A meets B, they get married and they live happily ever after. There is no fairy tale in this. So they could be of another religion, they could be physically not what you thought they would be. So you are a straight person and they are of the same. You're a male looking for a female, but it's a male now. That's your challenge. Distance is another challenge. So you are here and this person is in Poland. Now you have to connect. It never comes without challenges. But just knowing, only knowing that such a person is on the planet begins the ultimate best gift nature can give you. And so both have to then try and overcome these challenges and hardships. But your entire life shifts and changes as a result of that. Another great thing that happens is, because this is a spiritual awakening, you create some kind of an energy with which you can create something. And so if you read history, two people have met and they created something which was not possible without each other. So a strange, powerful energy is created. Lastly, I would like to say that it is not something that one should take lightly. This is a very, very serious business where two souls and the connection of these souls by the super soul, master soul, God, whatever you want, three people have to, three entities, I would say, have to connect. So it should not be seen physically, mentally, emotionally. It has to go beyond that. And the magic happens. It definitely happens. I hope I've answered the question.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. I cannot thank Tabby and you enough.
So, let me say a few words. So I think, ladies and gentlemen, Tony asked me before the interview how much time I had in mind. So I said to him, maybe roughly 2 hours. And at this time I also want to, you may not see from in front of the camera, but there is a gentleman behind the camera. His name is Zain and he is himself a highly intelligent, intellectual, creative person, loves music, loves creative writing, you know. So I've been friends with him for a number of years. So we requested him that if he could record today's special interview. So I hope that in these 2 hours...
Both of us have to thank him. Thank you, Zain. Thank you.
So I just wanted to share that I think in these 2 hours I tried to capture the essence of Tony, because I think there is so much, and I think, as we said, from a creative point of view, the question is not, many people who are writers or artists, they don't have much to share. In his case, he has too much to share. The question is what to keep it on the shelf and what to serve. So I hope that my curiosity or my being a humble student tried to sort of ask him some pointed questions and some difficult questions, and he was very kind and graceful to even ask my challenging questions, respond with a smile. So I hope that you people got something out of it to inspire you to connect with your own sort of creative self, and I'm hoping that it might inspire Tony to sort of take it further. We transcribe it and we write it, and but for me it was a very sort of enriching experience, and I'm glad that I met him, and I want to thank Tabby for the introduction and Zan for the recording. So thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.